There we go, I think.
All right, let me pull up
Yep.
the agenda.
And now it doesn't warn you that it's recording. Anyway, we'll call the meeting to order at 9:07. Any additions or deletions?
None.
Okay. There's no public, so there's no comment or discussion. Review and approve minutes of April 8th. Did you have any?
I did not have any changes to the minutes of April 8th.
Okay. So you want to move?
Yes, I moved that we approve the minutes from April 8th, 2022.
I will second. Any further discussion?
None.
All in favor? Aye. All right. No correspondence other than the email that we have for F27 from the nurse. So
yes.
let's move right into B1, substitute teachers. The only change that they made in this was pronouns.
Oh,
They're going through all policies and with a equity lens. So this was one
that's
of
good
those.
them.
So I don't know. I know Matt said that he had looked at everything and was good. Did you have a chance to read through it?
I did. I read through.
It's the same thing we approved a year ago, basically.
So where it's a big change, but it's a small change. It's
exactly.
It's a big small change. Do we need to warn it, or can we just accept the change? And
I think what we can do, what I recommend we do is that we recommend to the board that they mark it as reviewed. It does not have to be. Will have to be warned on the agenda, which.
Yes, we got those.
Right, which he did. Bill did. Yep. But other than that, we can, because there's no effective change to it. There's no change in the policy. It's just wording. Although it's important wording, it's still just wording.
Yep.
So that would be my recommendation.
We don't need a motion to just mark as reviewed.
Nope. We need a motion to recommend to the board that they mark it as reviewed.
All right, then I would like to make a motion that we move this to the board to mark this policy as reviewed.
I will second. Any discussion?
None.
And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. One down. C13. So E1 again is still just a placeholder. Trying to get a meeting scheduled with the WCSU policy committee, and that will be one of the things that we take up. So C13, students who are homeless. This is one that we adopted or reviewed about 2 years ago. Was the last time we looked at it. And I believe the only changes were an addition to the
administrative responsibilities.
Yep. And stupid me didn't mark which one it was.
Give me 1 second. You
I?
added an 8th administrative responsibilities, which is dispute eligibility, school selection, or enrollment decision, and a child or youth be admitted to the school in which enrollment is sought, pending the resolution of the dispute. You had really solid notes.
I must have had a lot of energy that night. So yeah, that's it. That's it. And there were some minor wording changes, which I think were more typo related type things. This one was already kind of gender neutral. So I don't know that that's going to affect us an awful lot. I guess it's possible, but we have the SU has somebody that handles, and all of a sudden I'm forgetting the name of the law.
McKinney Vento.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So, do you have any questions or comments?
No, it's a pretty minor change. I think they just added clarity with number 8. So, you know, we could mark it as revised, or we could just post it and warn it. But I think marking it as revised just makes sense too.
If we do, I always forget, if we do revised, do we need to warn it? I think we've done it on a case-by-case basis with revised. If we felt that there was something that the public should be able to review ahead of time, then we warn it. We've definitely warned some, and I'm pretty sure we've also just marked some as revised with minor revisions as well. So I'm good with either one.
Is it a better procedure to just bring it forward and so everybody's aware? Like, should we just go with the?
That's definitely the safe route. And actually, you know, because we're dealing with homeless and federal regulations, I think that probably is the better route to go.
That makes sense.
So we'll recommend to the board that it be warned for being marked as revised. That's probably not the greatest wording in the world, but
warned for revisions.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So you're moving that forward?
Yep, I will.
Okay. I will second that. We're moving to the board to warn for revisions.
Any further discussion?
None.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Great. 2 down. C10. And she's not here for me to thank for reminding me that this needs to be reviewed annually, but it does. And the only change was the addition of, on the very bottom of page 6, adding Tracy Bartlett as a designated employee. Oh, correction. I made one other change. I updated the emails from Matt and Tammy from their Dover and Wardsboro emails to Wyndham Central.
Perfect.
So this is another one of those policies. I think while it's really not a substantive, major substantive change, because it's hazing and bullying, I think we probably should do the same thing as we did with C13, and recommend to the board that it be warned for revision.
Okay, I will second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, should have asked if there was any further discussion. Figured there wasn't.
No.
F2. So this is a new policy, a new required policy that came out of a law that was passed last session up in Montpelier. The policy was written in collaboration with the School Boards Association, I think VPA, VSA, and I'm not even going to attempt to say their names because I'd butcher them, but there are a number of Native American groups that participated in both the deliberations during the session and in the writing of the policy. The one thing I want to note, and I'll make sure that that Bill is aware, although I'm sure he is, number 4 under administrative responsibilities, they have to develop a procedure for individual complaints. While it's a extremely substantive policy, it's pretty straightforward also.
Yeah, and it's definitely in line with what we've been watching across the country with different organizations, even ski mountains are making changes. Like a mountain in Maine just they reverted back to their old name of Pleasant Mountain instead of something that was divisive. So, yeah.
Definitely. And I mean, I'm sure you know about what was going on in Rutland with their mascot. Maybe
no,
not.
I didn't see that one. No.
So over the last couple of years, so Rutland changed their mascot. I don't remember what it was, but they changed it from something to Raven, I think, or maybe it was Raven to something. Anyway, and it created a huge uproar in the community. Well, put it blunt, the white nationalists came out. They ended up changing the makeup of the board enough in an election that they reversed course and went back to their, and I don't remember what it was. But a number of things happened. It was a really dirty couple of years over there in regards to this mascot stuff. So that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, that brought this to the legislature. And if I remember correctly, there are 8 or 9 mascots in the state that are going to be affected by this. Upwards of 20 or so, depending on who's looking at the names. I don't think it affects us, but I would have wanted to put this in place whether it was required or not. And
What is it for Dover?
Bulldogs.
Okay. And yeah, Wardsboro has Panthers. And
Right.
at this point, I'm not aware of any way that those would be inflammatory. But
I don't, yeah. I can't, unless PETA decided to come out and, but I don't see that happening. And I had input in the writing of this also, just to make it full disclosure. This was something I followed very closely last session and worked with the VSBA on. 'Cause I thought it was really important. So that being said, I'm not going to make a motion. I'm hoping you will, but I think it would be inappropriate for me to.
It's a required policy. It's a policy that makes sense. Like, even though, you know, I know that with, I think it was A30 or something, we're going to try not to put too many policies in place. Like, it's required, and it makes sense to make sure that we're being mindful and sensitive with what we put out into the community and how we represent the community. So with that being said, let's move forward to warn policy F2 to the board as a new policy.
To recommend that the board warn.
Oh, recommend.
We don't have enough control to just warn it. I will second that. Thank you, Kate.
Okay, recommend that the board warn.
Yeah.
F2.
Any further discussion?
None.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Did you say aye?
Aye. Oh, sorry. I don't know if yes, I say yeah. Aye.
I didn't know if you froze there for a second. All right, perfect. Thank you. That was a really important one. So D22 is a new, replacement policy for what was it? D31, which we had not adopted. We had not spoken about. So just because it was new, I brought it forward to us to talk about. Thoughts?
It's definitely a really important right. We should check in with the administrators and see if there's been any feedback, because I think that's kind of the guidance that we kind of set for ourselves with the passing of A30. So yeah, and if the administration feels that we need to put a policy into place, then we'll definitely go for it. But otherwise, like, just kind of know that it's there and we have something available to us should we need it.
I'm good with that. Definitely good with that. So we'll pass it over, and I will email our administration after the meeting, ask them for any feedback, and we'll bring it up at our next policy meeting. Okay, 822. Notice of non-discrimination. This is another recommended policy. I realize that minimalism is a good thing, but I kind of feel like this is an important one.
So non-discrimination.
And I think it's one that in practice is already in place.
Yeah. We didn't do this one last. I almost feel like we've reviewed this one before, and I thought we did do something with it, but I guess it reminds me of that policy that we looked at 2 years ago. That was new and was super important. But yeah, like,
are you thinking of you're not thinking of the hazing and harassment policy, are you?
No, I was thinking of the one that was made sure that students who identified as other genders or other were safe at school.
Yeah.
It
Oh, I have no
reminds,
idea. Let me see. That, I think that is the hazing and harassment, isn't it? No.
no,
Yeah.
it was the one about the bathrooms and making sure that we provided resources. Yeah, that is that really hazing and harassment? I need where's my link for the VSBA one? So I still have that bookmarked on my machine.
Nope. C28, transgender and gender nonconforming students.
Okay, that was the,
We adopted it April of 2021.
okay.
And then about a half a year before that, we adopted C29, the district equity policy.
Okay.
So these, to me, they all kind of go together as kind of a package of just the board being out there saying that these issues are important enough to us to have a policy in place. Even if in practice we don't need any of these policies, because we know that our administrators are going to behave in a respectful and honorable way, which I believe 100%. I still think that just the public face of it is important.
I also remember how 2016 felt, and that was terrible. So yeah, let's move this one. Let's recommend to the board that we warn a 22.
I will second that. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. And the last one is F27, communicable disease mitigation measures for students and staff. We spoke about this at the last.
Yeah.
I
we
think
were
it was the
talking about,
last.
was it April? We just approved the minutes, but I don't remember the month.
Yeah, April 8th.
It's so funny how much things can change in like 7 months.
I know, right?
Oh my gosh. And how fast 7 months can go.
Hey, Matt.
Hey guys. All right, they're off.
They're off and running.
On the second station now, so that's good.
So
Okay.
what is, hello? And so it's a fiesta day?
So we do a little thing where it's mostly a leadership opportunity for the sixth graders. And the PE teacher runs this, what we call Fall Fiesta, which unfortunately doesn't have anything to do with food. I was disappointed, but basically the sixth graders run these little stations, and they're game stations. And the school is split up into teams by color. And so there's representatives from each grade on one team, and each sixth grader gets a team. And they have to go through whatever this is, the obstacle or the activity or the game. The sixth grader has to explain it and teach it. And then they have to run it through, and they've got about 15 minutes to get through the whole process. And then they switch to a different station. And they just talk about sportsmanship and, you know, having fun, playing games, just the kind of some of the basic things, helping each other out, having different age groups working together, that kind of stuff.
And that's one of the fun parts about like these two schools that are smaller, like having the kid, and like we lost it for the last 2 years, but having the kids of different age groups working together is so cool. And it's just such a good, like you're saying, leadership for the older kids, but then also like collaboration for the little kids too.
Yeah, and they get to know each other's names a little better. And, you know, the games often involve where they have to name the other person before they can trigger the activity. So it just helps to get a little bit more community building going on. So,
Mrs. Johnson, the green team could use you for just a moment. If where's your
So,
location?
so we've gone through most of the policies.
Oh, you did?
I'll backtrack just a little bit to D22, which is selection of library materials.
Yeah.
We decided to kind of hold off on this and ask the administration, ask you folks, whether you have any feedback on the policy, felt it was necessary, and whether you've had any feedback from the families or the public, for that matter, that would make this an important policy to implement.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I originally, when I first read that this policy was up, I kind of cringed a little bit, I'll be honest with you. But we haven't had any particular, our librarian has been actively purging old materials from the library. That's part of her job, right? Is making sure that the materials remain fresh and updated. And so I see the real benefit of this one as kind of protecting the school's ability to maintain a diverse and complete library, so that it kind of protects us from the book banners and that whole sort of consciousness about getting materials, out for the sake of either religious implications or other things. So, I think that's kind of one of the underlying goals of the policy, and I think that's good. I wouldn't mind running it by the librarians just to get their input.
I think that's a great idea. And we'd like to get Tammy's input also before moving forward, but that's great. That's great insight. Kate?
Yeah, and like, because Mark and I, we had the discussion on like the less is more and making sure that we don't have too many policies, but at the same time, making sure that we're supporting you when a policy is needed. So making sure, doing that balance, making sure we have that balance. So that's where your input and Tammy's input and the librarians. Is that a shared position between the two schools, or are they separate?
Yeah, it's shared. Yeah, we have one librarian, so it's just a matter of asking her.
Oh, cool.
So I'd be happy to, if you'd like, I'd be happy to send the policy to our librarian and ask her for her input. And I agree that the less is more thing is important too. And but there are cases, and I think this might be one of them, where having the policy is a protective measure for, for the information, for, in this case, kind of the freedom of the information, which I value that. So anyway, I think that's the intention.
Oh, you went diving there, Matt, underwater.
Sorry. You know what happens is I'm on a Chromebook, and every time I scroll and read whatever the document is, it interferes with my uploading. So anyway, I'm
Got to get you a better Chromebook. You and Tammy need decent computers, and neither of you have them.
Yeah, I have a decent laptop, and but the Chromebook is just so much easier to move around. It's lighter and smaller, but it just doesn't have the horsepower, Can't do two things at once, for sure. Forget about a Zoom and like scrolling down a document in another window. Can't do it.
I won't say what I do with my Chromebook. I've got lots of things running at the same time, but not to mention I've got 499 tabs open right now.
You must have a Chromebook.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so you'll run this by the librarian, and I'll email Tammy just to get her input, and we'll bring it up at the next policy meeting.
Great.
So the last policy is the F27. We were just starting to discuss the communicable disease mitigation measures for students and staff. So we talked about this at the last meeting and wanted to get input from the nurse, and I'll just read it on the record, what we got from Nurse Vinton. said, when I initially read it a month ago, it seemed to be closely follows the protocols that we had put in place and followed during active pandemic stage with COVID. The only thing I wondered was the section about making accommodations for the co-curricular activities. That was, I think on page 2. Yeah, on page 2, under the curriculum instruction and school-sponsored activities section, athletics and co-curricular activities, it says school authorities will make reasonable accommodations to allow students with communicable diseases to participate in school-sponsored physical activities. And nurse continues to write on, to me, it seems counterintuitive to me that someone with a communicable disease would be considered eligible to participate in any school activities until their quarantine contagious periods were over. But school nurses are required to collaborate with families, the health department office of local health, and healthcare providers to develop and implement plans and accommodations for students returning to school after communicable disease. Just a thought. Also, in terms of comprehensive health education, is this something new that needs to be implemented, or is there a health education program already in place to coordinate with? So, take the second part first in regards to the comprehensive health education. Matt, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, there is. The answer is yes. There is a comprehensive health education curriculum that the schools use, and it's our health and PE teacher teaches it. I think Elise may be gearing up to teach it in Wardsboro, but it's prescribed and the standards are statewide, and so that part is well covered, I think. The other part about communicable diseases for co-curricular, when I read this, I interpreted that as really more geared toward high school sports and trying to make sure that kids are, in my opinion, eligible to play even when they shouldn't be playing. That's my opinion. I grant that. So I don't think it really applies to elementary level, that particular note. And so, and I think the elementary schools for any kind of outside of school activity would take the same stance as we would for in-school activities, which is follow the Department of Health guidance on any of those diseases or sicknesses, illnesses.
So I guess question I have for you, Matt, is does having this policy help or hinder, or kind of is it neutral to the responses that you would already have in place?
Can you guys hear me okay? Because I think I had to change screens. I might be underwater again.
You were for a second. You're back.
Okay.
Sort of back.
So I don't see that it hinders us. Am I still underwater?
Nope, we got you.
Okay. My hands are not on the computer. That's the thing is when I scroll, I lose it. Anyway, I'll keep my hands up. I don't think it hinders us. I do think it's got some things that are not applicable to elementary, particularly around, traveling sports teams at night and that kind of thing is more of a middle school, high school issue. When I read this, my interpretation was it was really just an extension of what the Department of Health is trying to do, and I didn't have any objections to anything I read in this policy.
I guess second part of my question is if a new COVID, not a new strain, but a new pandemic or a new communicable disease airs its ugly head, would having this in place help your response? Is it worth us having in place for something like that?
I'm just kind of rereading it a little bit. I mean, it really seems like it's straightforward guidance from Department of Health that we would, common sense, we would follow it anyway. I'm not sure what we really gain from it. But again, I'm not the expert. I wonder if maybe we ought to consider consulting the nurses on this again, or maybe ask Jorda if she has a, you know, as the COVID coordinator, does she have a feeling about whether this would be helpful or whether this is gonna, initially I didn't think it would cause any problems or any barriers, but I also don't see that it really gives us anything that we wouldn't already be doing anyway, taking guidance from the Department of Health. But like I said, I'm not the health expert.
Kate, any thoughts or questions?
Yeah, it's definitely a policy that, you know, like it's trying to cover a wide range of things. Like in the list that they provide, I mean, they talk about everything from HIV, you know, down to COVID and you know, future viruses and things like that. And like if a student did have HIV, like then athletics and co-curricular, that makes sense that you would want to like then that like it makes sense that like a student who has a long-term disease like that, like they do need something to say that. But at the same time, like it hasn't come up that this is like a needed policy at this point in the game. And I mean, we seem to be entering a new state with COVID. And it feels like we have a lot of procedures in place still. And you guys are very good about following the guidelines set by the state. So I don't know. I think consulting with Jordan might be a good next step.
You know, it looks kind of like the meat and potatoes of this policy is that it allows the district, meaning River Valleys, to implement disease mitigation measures in the event of a communicable disease. That seems like maybe a protection for the district to be able to say, hey, the rates are so high, we're putting the masks back on. And, you know, this policy would give the board the authority to do that. Or we got an outbreak of Ebola, everybody has to wear a chem suit to school for the next, you know, something the board would be empowered to, you know, implement these mitigation measures. So that seems to be the focus, which I think is fine. And I think the board would try to do that anyway. You know, if there was I'm looking at the list, meningitis outbreak, and it's not funny, but I think the board would strive to do that. And this would kind of protect the board if the board tried to make a decision to mitigate, you know, put in measures in place to mitigate a communicable disease.
So looking at what we've done over the last 2 years, it feels like, you know, it made a lot of sense a lot of times to default to the policy that like the, you know, like the state level agencies were going to, and to not bring it on ourselves to define the policies. If that felt like a safer course of action. Does that make sense? Like, so I don't know if we want to put a policy in place that makes us make the decision. Do you?
That's a good point.
Okay, kiddos, it is time to change. Go to your next station.
Gotta go, sorry.
Time to everybody. Yeah, next state.
You are outside with Miss Zoe.
All right, so
Next station.
I'll be honest, I don't know if it's worth asking Jorda, because I think the path that we're on is, at least for the time being, not going down this route. That's sort of what I'm hearing. And I don't disagree with that. Seeing how River Valleys and Wyndham Central responded over the last couple of years, without having a policy in place like this, I don't really have a concern that we're not going to be able to respond in a way that is responsible if something happens. I think there's enough backing. I think there's enough backing us up with CDC and Department of Health already that I don't know that we need a policy for it.
My only question mark is, I'm just recalling some board meetings where we were talking about masking and testing, and even here, you know, there definitely were some families that were opposed to some of the decisions that we made. And this policy looks like it would give the board pretty clear authority to make those decisions. Whereas when we didn't have a policy, we kind of had to struggle with it through conversation at meetings and debate, which I'm all in favor of. I'm just trying to sort of get my head around why this would be might be helpful to the board.
Go ahead, Kate.
And then I think that's where we kind of stood on the defaulting to what the Agency of Education and what all of those things, because it wasn't us stepping outside our area of expertise per se. Like it wasn't, you know, like me as Kate Rideout determining that, yes, we all need to mask. This makes the most sense. It was, you know, learning from experts that had, that had more information than we did and more experience than we did. And I think that was a really solid way of getting through some of the things that we've navigated in the last couple of years, even though there were parents that were feeling like we should have dropped masks earlier than we did. Like, I feel like we played a safe game by going with some other subject matter experts rather than having us try to be subject matter experts at something that we're not.
I also think that that debate, even if this policy was in place, would still occur because the board has and had the authority to make those decisions. And there are times when we chose not to, as Kate was saying, we deferred to, you know, the subject matter experts. I guess I feel like we already have that state law. Statutorily, we have that authority already. That I don't know that putting it in a policy gives us any greater protection. And I don't think that it's going to stop a parent, you know, if we do need to, you know, put every kid into a chem suit, it's not going to stop a parent from saying my kid can't breathe in it. You know, this isn't right. You can't, you know. So I think the idea is important, but I think it's already in statute that as a school board, we have that authority to do that. So.
Yeah, I think if you guys are comfortable with it, I'm totally fine with not adopting this one.
So Kate, why don't I put this on kind of our list to get back to maybe in 2 or 3 years and just look at it again, or the next time it's updated, unless you disagree.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's definitely worth looking at and talking about, especially where we were last year when we were talking about it, when we, you know, like we were just saying a little bit ago, it's amazing how things can change in like 7 months, thankfully.
Yeah, the better.
After 2.5 years of super weirdness, now we're at mild weirdness.
Cool.
And I think overall we did a good job. I mean, there were times when I disagreed with the direction that we went, but we're a board of 6, so we make up those decisions and we move forward. I don't think we made any decision that was so contrary to healthcare that put us into a position that we would be liable. I think there are boards in the state that did that. I don't think we did though. So, all right. So why don't we move on? So any other policies or business anyone would like to discuss? Nope.
So if you like, just as a quick note, and it's not really a super agenda item, but if you wanted to send this as a page, like your recap notes as a page for Bill to send out with the agenda, that would be.
Yeah, I don't, it probably won't make it with the agenda. Well, it
Yeah.
won't because the agenda went out already, but yeah, I will send
As-
him the usual
Okay.
recap.
Yeah, that way we can incorporate these Monday night, because he put placeholders on them on the agenda so that we could talk about any of these that we might need to move forward. So
Yeah, no, I'll send it to him and ask him to send it out to the whole board so that everybody has it ahead of time.
okay.
Definitely. So our next meeting is January 13th. It will be via Zoom. Meeting following that, February 10th, we're gonna have to have a physical location also. The state policy, state law expires January 15th. That allows us to meet just remotely. So unless the legislature takes that up in the next session, we'll have to start having a physical location as well. And a regular list of future agenda items. So if nobody has anything else, I will adjourn us at 9:54.
Perfect.
Thank you